Hi, my name is Sheila Corona. Welcome back to the Jeshua Channelings by Pamela Kribbe. For those of you that are following along with me in the book, we're on page 169, Dealing with Emotions. Dear friends, I am delighted to be among you today, no, to be among you again, and to communicate with you in this way. I must say that this means a lot to me as well. I cherish these meetings, for in this way I can come closer to you than from my own plane of reality. Yet I always live inside your hearts, and I wait for moments in your time when you are open and susceptible to my energy. My energy, the Christ energy, is being reborn in this time. It is not solely my energy. It is not simply the energy of one man who lived on earth at one time. It is a collective energy field in which you take part in a way that is more profound than you realize. You all made a vow once. You all set your intention to carry this energy forth into the reality of earth, to anchor it in earth. Many lifetimes, many centuries, you have worked on this mission. You are all in the process of birthing the Christ seed within, and I am helping you. I was a forerunner, yet the sowing of the Christ seed was a collective effort. Even my coming to earth was possible only because of the field of energy that was present here, woven by you. We work together. We are a unity. Therefore, I am accessible to all of you. I am not exclusively available to any one person. I am at the service of all of you. Pardon me. I have to say this about that. When I read this, that just validated my feelings about there's a lot of channelers that bring through Archangel Michael, that bring through Mother Mary, that bring through Christ. And, there's been a lot of folks that'll poo poo that because um, so and so over there said that they're the channeler for that, like there's only one, right? We are a multidimensional being all the way through. And so that was just very validating to me because it's an energetic that we pick up on. And it is, again, just another part of the one whose energy is available if we are open to it. We're antennas in many ways. Today, I want to speak about an issue that touches you deeply and frequently in your day to day life. It is about dealing with emotions. Last time I spoke about the energies of the male and the female, which run through your energy field and chakras. I have emphasized the importance of healing the lowest three chakras as a part of becoming whole and complete unto yourself. I thought it was important to emphasize this as some of you who crave the spiritual tend to withdraw yourself both in thought and feeling to the higher chakras. And I think this is what, when I spoke about not being fully in here, this is what this is referring to, right? The soul, the spirit, that which is the divine or the more expansive part of myself has hovered up here. And I've said that many times, right? The heart, the third eye, and the crown chakra are attractive to you because these energy centers connect you with the higher realms that are so natural to you. But the real inner breakthroughs must now occur on a lower level in the area of the lower chakras, closer to earth. The area of the emotions is a vital area in your growth process towards freedom and wholeness. You are spiritual beings. You come from a plane of reality where the density and the coarseness of earth reality was unknown to you. To cope with this has been difficult. Throughout many lives, you have tried to express your cosmic energy here on earth. And in this expression, in the channeling of your energy to earth, many deep traumas have built up. The emotional body that you all have is rife with wounds and traumas. Of that, I wish to speak to you today. Anyone who walks the path of inner growth knows the importance of emotions, that you should not repress them, that you have to come to terms with them in some way, that you must ultimately release them. But how it all really works is not always so clear. I first want to make a distinction between emotions and feelings. I am not concerned here with specific terms or labels, and you may call it by different names. But I want to make a distinction between emotions in the sense of energies that are essentially expressions of misunderstanding, and feelings or energies that are from a form of higher understanding, not from. I'm going to read that again because I had a whole bunch, I was being shown, I was being shown how I've come to feel that each individual one of us has experienced emotions and feelings associated with language that absolutely differs from the next guy, even your brother or sister that you may have grown up with in the home. Even if it's an identical twin situation, it's from a different perspective. Because not being in this physical vessel, there's no way anyone could ever truly understand how I feel. They didn't feel it. They didn't move through it. They weren't emotionally traumatized by it. And no one can say, oh, well, that's not traumatizing. Nobody can say that. There's nobody has a right to say how, oh, you don't feel what you feel. Nobody has the right to say that. But at the same time, we have to realize that you don't know how someone else is feeling. Just because you think you understand the words coming out of their mouth may not be that you actually understand what they mean, the emotions, the feelings behind it. This changed everything for me. Once I really grokked that, it was like the when we make those sorts of judgment calls, it's from our perspective. And we have to make a bunch of assumptions to make that judgment. Uh, Assumptions that we know what they are meaning, what they are feeling, what they went through, what they know, what they don't know. There's a whole bunch there, right? For me, anyway, because then once I saw that, it was like, not to mention, it releases one. Uh, there's so many times at 63 that I have moved through my life thinking somebody said something to me in one particular way, only to find out later, oh no, that's not at all what they meant. I don't know how if I'm explaining that right. I'm going to read this again because as that was coming in, I sort of went somewhere. I first want to make a distinction between emotions and feelings. I am not concerned here with specific terms or labels, and you may call it by different names. But I want to make a distinction between emotions in the sense of energies that are essentially expressions of misunderstanding, and feelings or energies that are a form of higher understanding. Feelings are your teachers while emotions are your children. Emotions are energy that have a clear manifestation in the physical body. Emotions are reactions to things that you do not really understand. Consider what happens when you are overcome by a fit of rage. For instance, someone hurts your feelings unexpectedly, and you feel yourself becoming angry. You can feel this very clearly in your body. In certain places, you feel the energy go tense. This physical tension or tightening that follows the energetic shock shows there is something you do not understand. There is an energy coming towards you that you feel is unjustified. The feeling of being treated unjustly. In short, the not understanding is vented through this emotion. The emotion is the expression of not understanding. It is an energetic explosion and a release. When this happens, you are confronted with the following choice. What am I going to do with this emotion? Am I going to base my actual behavior on it? Am I going to use this as fuel for my reactions to other people? Or do I let the emotion be and base my actions on something else? Before answering this question, I want to explain the nature of feelings. Emotions are essentially explosions of misunderstanding that you can clearly perceive in the body. Feelings, on the other hand, are of a different nature and are perceived differently as well. Feelings are more quiet than emotions. They are the whispers of the soul that reach you through gentle nudges and inner knowingness or a sudden intuitive action that later appears to have been very wise. Emotions always have something very intense and dramatic to them. Consider anxiety attacks, fear, rage, or deep sadness. Emotions take hold of you completely and pull you away from your spiritual center. I got to mark that actually, and I got to bear with me. I've only read this like this is the fifth time I've recorded it twice because it's I used channel names and I needed not to do that because I had my channel taken down. Okay, so because I also need to share this with someone because the minute I read that, I could see where this would be very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to read that again. Emotions have something very intense and dramatic to them. Consider anxiety attacks, fear, rage, or deep sadness. Emotions take hold of you completely and pull you away from your spiritual center. Well, the fact that they take hold of you instead of you wielding them is for me a very, very disempowering move, right? And I never really, even though I've read this before, I must have forgotten, and it makes so much sense that feelings are your teachers while emotions are your children. And trust when I say there's not an inner child on this planet that isn't hiding and traumatized. That's how it almost always starts out with all of us. That's the whole point for me, anyway, that I see puzzle piece collecting wise. With this, I do not want to say anything against emotions. Emotions should not be repressed. They are very valuable as a means to get to know yourself more intimately. Believe, trust. I'm learning that very, very, very much. But I do want to state that the nature of emotional energy is it is an explosion of misunderstanding. Emotions essentially take you out of your center. Feelings, on the other hand, bring you deeper into yourself, into your center. Feelings are closely associated with what you call intuition. Feelings express a higher understanding, a kind of understanding that transcends both the emotions and the mind. Feelings originate in a non physical realm outside of the body. That is why they are not so clearly located within one spot of the physical body. Consider what happens when you sense something, an atmosphere, or a mood, or when you have presentiments about a situation. There is a kind of knowingness within you then that seems to come from the outside. And that is not a reaction from you to something external. It comes, quote, out of nothing, out of the blue, as you so beautifully put it. In such a moment, you may feel something open up in your heart chakra. There are many moments in which such an inner knowingness comes to you. Okay, I was just flashed something. A lot of times, some knowingness and some what I call alchemical epiphany comes with a full-on body rush. You know what I mean? For me, anyway. And I've heard others speak to that as well. There are many moments in which such an inner knowingness comes to you. For instance, you may, quote, know something about someone having really talked with him without having really talked with him or her. It's happening more and more and more and more in this household, I can assure you. You can sense something about the two of you that later on will play an important role in your relationship. Such things are not easy to grasp in words, quote, simply a feeling, and certainly not easily understood by the mind. These are the moments in which your mind gets skeptical, telling you that you are making things up or are going crazy. I know this to be true. This has happened to me. And it all stems from all kinds of trauma as a child, reporting to those adults around me what I was hearing, seeing, interacting with. Sooner or later, when a child is sharing their uh, I, I wanted to say fantastical life, but see, that's just part of the problem. The language, even the language of it, makes it sound like it doesn't exist, but it clearly does. um, but also, right here where it says you can sense something about the two of you that later will play an important role in your relationship, that you may know something without having really talked to them. This happens all the time, and because we are not, or I wasn't being present and puzzle piece collecting, it didn't present. But I'll give you an example. Just 2 weeks ago, my housemate, Lisa Rush, she's been on the channel before. We'll have many conversations to come. She went on a trip to visit some dear friends. A child she used to be the nanny for has had children, and invited her to come to the child's birthday party, her child's birthday party. I actually, uh, I actually got nudged to create from my own pattern uh, a little jellyfish guy. See, he's a jellyfish. He's got 13 tentacles. He's not an octopus this time. He's an actual jellyfish, right? And this was going with her for the child, right? When she showed up, the child ran to her off of the school bus wearing a blue jellyfish on her shirt. It was blue. It was totally blue. The jellyfish that I sent with her was totally blue. Now, you could say that's coincidence. You could. Or you could say, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I knew what she wanted or I knew her favorite color because I don't know these folks at all. I just I didn't even ask. I just started making. And I thought it was really cool. And I mixed two different patterns together and I chose my favorite color. And it was the first time I ever tried making my no, it's the second time I've tried making my own pattern. And B, it was the first time I ever tried a jellyfish at all. So I feel like that's what this is referring to here. And we tend to miss out on these connections because we're not present, we're not paying attention, right? And it was reported to me, of course, because of our quest, the fact that Lisa is on her own quest and she knows that I recognize my all of this as my quest. And so she said, "You are not going to believe what happened with this," right? So it was to me, this whole statement here, there are many moments in which such an inner knowingness comes to you. For instance, you may know something about someone without having really talked with him or her. You can sense something about the way the two of you that later on will play an important role in your relationship. I maintain that my larger self was in touch with that child and that child's higher self told my higher self what she'd like for her birthday. And I heard the ego part, the personality part that has just, I don't know, it was very interesting. Such things are, you can sense something about the two of you that later on will play an important role in your relationship. I haven't ever met the child. I'm looking forward to that happening one day. Such things are not easy to grasp in words. Quote, simply a feeling and certainly not easily understood by the mind. That's why the mind wants to say, oh, that's just a coincidence, or you must have heard in passing that the child likes jellyfish. No, this is the brand new thing. The child has been reading about jellyfish. She's like not even 5, I don't think. Reading about jellyfish, watching videos about jellyfish. It's all of a sudden it's her favorite living animal. These are the moments in which your mind gets skeptical, telling you that you are making things up or are going crazy. I would like to mention another energy that has more of a quote feeling nature than an emotional one. It is joy. Joy can be a phenomenon that transcends the emotional. Sometimes you can feel a kind of joy inside that lifts you up without a particular reason. You feel the divinity inside you and your intimate connection to all that exists. Such a feeling may come to you when you least expect it. It is as if something greater touches you, or as if you touch a greater reality. And Something greater had the first letters of each word capitalized, and greater reality does as well. I wanted to share that because sometimes uh, there's a reason that the being channeled wishes to have things um, highlighted in certain ways. Feelings are not so easily summoned and seem to come to you, quote, out of the blue. Emotions almost always have a clear and immediate cause, a trigger in the outside world that, quote, pushes your buttons. Feelings originate from the dimension of your higher or greater self. You need to be quiet inside to catch those whispers in your heart. Emotions can disturb this inner silence and peace. Therefore, it is vital to become emotionally calm and to heal and release repressed emotions. Only from your feeling, which connects you to your soul, can you make balanced decisions. By being quiet and peaceful, you can feel with all of your being what is right for you at a certain moment. Making decisions based on emotions is making decisions from a non centered position. You need to release the emotions first and get in touch with the inner core, your inner core, where there is clarity. Yes, and I'm learning, and I didn't quite grasp this at first, but I'm learning about myself that I have to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling, whether it be emotion or feeling, all the way through, especially if it's an emotion, because I need to have conversation with it. Once triggered, I have to have a conversation with my inner child that was triggered and find out, what can I do? What can we do? Let's feel this all the way through. What is it really connected to? Let's get to the bottom of the issue. And oftentimes, specifically in childhood trauma, those memories can be buried deep behind all kinds of blocks and walls that we've put up to protect ourselves. That is for me, I've come to feel that is the whole meat and potatoes of what I'm here to do, is to resolve that trauma. Because now I've also seen how innocently said trauma actually can be started or piled upon. It's not always that it was a horrific, abusive situation. We tend to ascribe trauma to just that kind of a situation when indeed it's not always like that. I've witnessed the installation of a minor trauma, but that minor trauma will be heaped upon and heaped upon and heaped upon. May already have been something that was trauma that just gets worse, that just gets cracked in a different way. So I want to read that again. I'm feeling inspired to read that again. And again, this could be for just me. By being quiet and peaceful, you can feel with all of your being what is right for you at a certain moment. That's something we're practicing too, is learning to trust uh, our inner voice, right? Making decisions based on emotions is making decisions from a non-centered position. You need to release the emotions first and get in touch with your inner core where there is clarity. Now, I want to go into the question of how you can best deal with your emotions. I said that, quote, feelings are your teachers and emotions are your children. The parallels between being emotional, quote, being emotional, and, quote, being like a child are striking. Your inner child is the seat of your emotions. Also, there is a striking resemblance between the way you deal with your own emotions and the way you deal with real children. Children are honest and spontaneous in their emotions, and they do not hide or repress them until adults encourage them to do so, wherein the trauma begins to be installed. I'm saying that, not Christ. I'll repeat his words. Not Christ, Jeshua. And that's very clear. He's very clear. This is Jeshua speaking. Children are honest and spontaneous in their emotions, and they do not hide or repress them until adults encourage them to do so. The fact that children spontaneously express their emotions does not, however, mean that children experience their emotions in a balanced way. Everyone knows that children can be carried away by their emotions, rage, fear, or sadness, and are often unable to put a stop to them. In such a situation, the child can almost drown in their emotions, and that makes them unbalanced, out of center. One of the reasons for this unbounded emotionality is that the child has only recently left a world in which there are hardly any boundaries. In the ethereal or astral dimensions, there were no such restrictions and limitations as there are in the physical realm. Within the physical body, the child's emotions are often, quote, reactions of misunderstanding to this physical reality. I don't know why, but I'm being flash a 2-year-old. Imagine you're a creator being in another realm and you think you can come in here and handle this. And when you actually get into the body, and now and coming through that veil of forgetfulness, because that happens for everyone, right? And now, as you're learning to move around in, I don't know, I just was flashed that 2-year-old, of course, coming from no limitations into all these restrictions and being, for all intents and purposes, programmed and conditioned, i.e., gaslighted, unknowingly gaslighted. Let's just put it that way. Um, no wonder we're all wandering around, not knowing who we are and what this gig is all about. It's really funny when you think about it, if you ask me. Therefore, when he or she grows up, the child needs help and support in dealing with their emotions. This is part of the process of, quote, balanced incarnating on earth. So, how do you deal with emotions, whether in yourself or in your children? Emotions should not be judged or repressed. Emotions are a vital part of you as a human being, and as such, they need to be respected and accepted. You can look upon your emotions as your children who need your attention and respect and your guidance. An emotion can best be viewed as an energy that comes to you for healing. Therefore, it is important to not be completely swept away by the emotion, but to remain able to look at it from a neutral stance. It is important to stay conscious. One might put it like this: you should not repress an emotion, but you should not drown in it either. For when you drown in it, when you identify with it completely, the child in you becomes a tyrant that will lead you astray. The most important thing you can do with an emotion is to allow it in, to feel all aspects of it while not losing your consciousness. Take, for instance, anger. You can invite anger to be fully present, experiencing it in your body at several places, while you are at the same time neutrally observing it. Such a such a type of consciousness is healing. What happens in this instance is that you embrace the emotion, which is essentially a form of misunderstanding with understanding. This is spiritual alchemy. This, for me, is the quest. This is resolving trauma. For me, this is what I would equate it to. Let me explain with the help of an example. Your child has bumped her knee on the table and it really hurts. She is upset, screaming with pain, and she kicks the table because she's angry with it. She considers the table to be the source of her pain. Emotional guidance at this moment means that the parent first helps the child name her experience. You are angry, aren't you? You are in pain, right? Naming it is essential. You transfer the root of the problem from the table to the child herself. It's not in the table. It is you who are hurt. It is you who are angry. And yes, I understand your emotion. The parent embraces the emotion of the child with understanding, with love. The moment the child feels understood and recognized, her anger will gradually fade away. The physical pain may still be present, but her resistance to the pain, the anger around it, can dissolve. The child reads compassion and understanding in your eyes, and this relaxes and soothes her emotions. The table, the cause of the emotions, is not relevant anymore. See, now I was just shown this is where if somebody triggers me, it's not them that I'm upset with. I want to find out what's behind that trigger. And that's what this is describing here. That for all intents and purposes, that person actually did me a favor because they're helping me figure out where there's still unresolved trauma within me. No matter what it is, they didn't cause it. It triggered something within me, in my field, that is unresolved and that my inner child looks at as whatever the emotion is, right? And for me, I've found time and time again where a lot of that is tied to traumatic experiences farther back that I have no recollection of how they started or anything else, but there's a general thing underneath of it. And so resolving that, that's where the good juju is, right? So I feel like that's what this is explaining here. In embracing an emotion with understanding and compassion, you shift the focus of the child's attention from outside to inside, and you teach the child to take responsibility for the emotion. You are showing her that her reaction to an outside trigger is not a given, but it is a matter of choice. You can choose misunderstanding or understanding. You can choose to fight or accept. You can choose. This also applies to the relationship with your own emotions, your own inner child. Allowing your emotions in, naming them, and making an effort to understand them means that you truly respect and cherish your inner child. Making the shift from quote outer to quote inner, taking responsibility for the emotion helps to create an inner child that does not want to hurt anyone else, that does not feel victimized. Strong emotions, whether anger, grief, or fear, always have the component of powerlessness. For example, the sense that you are the victim of something outside of you. What you do when you focus on the not on the circumstances outside of you, but instead on your reaction and your pain is that you dismiss the outside world as the cause of your emotions. You do not care that much about what gave rise to the emotion, which is like what I said. You completely turn inward and you say to yourself, okay, this has been my reaction and I understand why. I may not yet understand why, that hence the questions. I understand why I feel the way I do, and I am going to support myself in this. And that's it for me now. Instead of even if I don't understand why, I'm still offering myself support because it will be revealed to me because I have asked the question of myself and then become vigilant as the answer will absolutely present itself to me. And it's happened time and time again, which is also very delicious. Turning toward your emotions in such a loving manner is liberating. It does require a kind of self discipline. Releasing outside reality as the quote, source of evil and taking full responsibility for yourself means that you acknowledge that, quote, you choose to react a certain way. You stop arguing about who is right and who is wrong, who is to blame for what, and you simply release the whole chain of events that happened outside of your control. Quote, I now experience this emotion in the full awareness that I choose to do so. That is taking responsibility, and that is courage. The self discipline in this is that you give up on being righteous and on being the helpless victim. And I'm laughing about the righteous part because boy, oh boy, was that me. I just knew that I had the answer and I had the answer for everybody on whatever the subject was, you know. And that's why I'm laughing because that's so me. I don't do that nearly as much. I'm practicing seeing that I can only be right for me because I'm the only one that has experienced me all the way through the 63 years I've been on the planet. You give up on feeling angry, misunderstood, and all the other expressions of victimhood that can feel quite good at sometimes. Truly, you often cherish the emotions that bug you the most. Yeah, there's people that love being pissed off all the time because I don't know, but they just do. It seems like anyway. And that, hey, who am I to say? Because that's maybe the experience they came here to experience. I mean, I don't know. That's where that whole thing about me making assumptions that everybody wants to experience the same thing here on the planet. If we truly are all one and yet separate and singular in nature, what would be the point in everybody wanting to experience the exact same thing? See, that explains so much on this planet. That explains so much of what is actually happening on this planet. Taking responsibility is an act of, I'm going to read that again. The self discipline in this is that you give up on being righteous and on being the helpless victim. You give up on feeling angry, misunderstood, and all the other expressions of victimhood that can feel quite good at times. In parentheses here, truly, you often cherish the emotions that bug you the most. Taking responsibility is an act of humbleness. It means being honest with yourself, even at your weakest moments. Yeah, that's so true. This is the self-discipline that is asked of you. At the same time, this kind of turning inward requires the highest compassion. The emotion you are honestly prepared to face as your own creation is also looked upon with gentle understanding. Quote, you chose anger this time, didn't you? Compassion tells you, okay, I can see why and I forgive you. Perhaps when you feel my love and support more clearly, you will not feel inclined to take that response next time. This is the true role of consciousness in self healing. Yes, I work with myself constantly. This is what spiritual alchemy actually means. Consciousness does not fight or reject anything. It encircles darkness with awareness. It encircles the energies of misunderstanding with understanding, and thus transforms ordinary metal into gold. Wow, I just saw something. I was just flashed something. This is why, actually, there is no light workers, and it's addressed earlier on in the book. So if you're just hearing this chapter of the book, please go to the first couple of chapters about light workers, and he explains quite a bit about that there. But this is why it's imperative as light workers that the focus really be on self healing, because honestly, we can share what has worked for us, but that's really all we can do. It because it might not work for the other being for this very reason. What we're doing by turning the light of our own consciousness into this and encircling, it says it encircles darkness with awareness. It encircles the energies of misunderstanding. Well, that misunderstanding over there is different than this misunderstanding in here. For the very same reasons that I said before, that no one has lived inside my body, so they can't possibly know what it is I misunderstand because I don't even know. Right? So that's why it has to be an inner gaze. Why my own consciousness has to encircle the darkness of what I don't know and feel into the way I feel about everything, right? Consciousness and love are essentially the same. Being conscious means letting something be and surrounding it with your love and compassion. Wow, that brings a whole different take to all of this for me. If it, when one really contemplates that, often you think that quote consciousness alone is not enough to overcome your emotional problems. You say, I know I have repressed emotions. I know the cause of it. I am aware, but it does not go away. In that case, there is a subtle resistance within you to that emotion. You keep the emotion at a distance. I know, I've done this myself. From fear of being overwhelmed by it. But you are never overwhelmed by an emotion when you consciously choose to allow it. As long as you keep the emotion at a distance, you are at war with it. You are fighting the emotion and it will turn against you in several ways. That's why, anyone who doesn't wish to do counseling, let's say, or doesn't want to look into their traumatized childhood, the past is in the past, let it lie there, right? Many marriages have broken up for these reasons. My 28 and a half year marriage as well, to a man whom I still truly adore, solely because couldn't go there. This just was a place I was going and he didn't want to go. And I don't have the right to force him to look at himself. Nobody has the right to force anybody else to do anything else, really. I mean, come on, that's the whole point of coming here, right? And it, as long as you keep the emotion at a distance, you are at war with it. You can pretend that you're not, but you are. You are fighting the emotion and it will turn against you in several ways. I got to 490 pounds. So that was my particular way, right? You cannot keep it outside in the end. It will manifest itself in your body as an ache or tension or as a feeling of depression. I was treated for depression for 28 years. The last 3 years, they decided I was bipolar. Feeling down or weary frequently is a clear sign that you are repressing certain emotions. The thing is that you need to allow the thing is that you need to allow the emotions to fully enter your consciousness. If you do not know exactly what emotions are there, you can very well start by feeling the tensions in your body. This is the gateway to your emotions. In your body, it is all stored. For instance, how much trauma and emotional stuffing did I have to do to get to 490 pounds? One might ask oneself, right? I mean, it's so clear to me, right? Because it says in your body, it is all stored. For instance, if you feel pain or tension in the area of your stomach, you can go there with your awareness and ask, what is the matter? Let the cells of your body speak to you, or imagine that right there, a child is present. Ask the child to show you what emotion is predominant in him or her. There are several ways to connect with your emotions. It is vital to realize, I got to write this down. Hold on a second, y'all. Um, I was just flashed. I need to do a BQH session about my solar plexus. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your patience with that. Okay. Um, There are several ways to connect with your emotions. It is vital to realize that the energy got stuck in the emotion wants to move. This energy wants to be released, and therefore it knocks at your door as a physical complaint or as a feeling of stress or depression. For you, it is a matter of really opening up and being prepared to feel the emotion. Emotions are part of your earthly reality, but they should not get a hold over you. Emotions are like clouds for the sun. Therefore, it is so important to be aware of your emotions and to deal with them consciously. From a clear and balanced emotional body, it is much easier to contact your soul or inner core through your intuition. In your society, there is much confusion about emotions. This is evident, among other things, from the amount of debate and confusion there is about how to raise your children. Children are Children clearly are much more emotionally spontaneous than you are as adults. This creates difficulties. What if what if some of your moral boundaries are crossed? What if the situation gets out of hand and chaos arises? Does one have to discipline children or let them express themselves freely? Do their emotions have to be controlled or not? And, these are all very valid parenting questions that, for time immemorial. What is important in a child's upbringing is that they learn to understand their emotions, to understand where they come from, and to take responsibility for them. With your help, the child can learn to see their emotion as explosions of misunderstanding. This understanding prevents your child from, quote, drowning in their emotions and going out of control. Understanding liberates, and boy, doesn't it ever. Oh my word, it brings a peace that, um, oh, I, what is that saying? The peace that passes all understanding. Yes, I mean, I have to tell you, for me, it certainly does, and it releases one from. I don't have to feel a certain kind of way for anything out there anymore. It's only what's in here. That's what that taking full responsibility for one's own emotions does. That liberation that is being described here is very real in my view. Understanding liberates and brings you back to your own center without repressing the emotions. The parent teaches their child to deal with emotions in this way by being the living example of it. All the questions you have about dealing with your children also apply to yourself. How do you cope with your own emotions? Are you hard on yourself? Oh, I still am incredibly hard on myself. When you feel angry or sad for some time, do you discipline yourself by saying, come on, get yourself together and move on? Do you suppress the emotion? Do you feel that disciplining yourself is good and necessary? Who taught you this? Was it a parent? Or do you go to the other side? Do you wallow in your emotion, not wanting to let go of it? This is also frequently the case. You may have felt for a long time that you were a victim of some situation outside of you. For example, your upbringing, your partner, or your work environment. At a certain moment, it may have been very liberating to get in touch with the anger inside you about the negative things that influenced you. Anger can enable you to break free from these influences and go your own way. However, you may get so enamored with your anger that you do not want to give it up anymore. Instead of becoming a doorway, it becomes a way of living. A form of victimhood then arises, which is anything but healing. It holds you back from truly standing in your own power. It is very important to take responsibility for your own emotions and to not make absolute truths of them. When you give them the status of truths, instead of looking upon them as explosions of misunderstanding, you will base your actions on them, and that will lead to uncentered decisions. The same happens with children who are allowed too much emotional freedom. They run wild and become uncontrollable. They become little tyrants, and that is not right. Emotional chaos is just as unpleasant for the child as it is for the parent. In short, you can either be too strict or too lenient in dealing with your emotions, and by analogy, with your children. I want to go a little more into the quote lenient way, for that seems to be more of an issue nowadays. Since the 60s, there has been a collective realization that it will not do to suppress your emotions, for then you are stifling your spontaneity and creativity, indeed, your very soul. Society will produce disciplined and obedient children who care more for rules than whispers of the heart, and that is a tragedy for society as well as the individual. And goodness knows we've seen that across the board, have we not? But what about that other extreme? What about justifying emotions in such a way that they take over and rule your life? You can very well observe inside you whether there are emotions that you cherish in such a way that you regard them as truth instead of what they really are, explosions of misunderstanding. These are emotions you have identified with. The paradox is that often enough, these are emotions that cause you much suffering. For instance, powerlessness. In parentheses, I can't help it. I cannot help it. Control. Quote, I'll handle it. I've done that one a lot. Anger, it's their fault. Or grief, life is miserable. These are all emotions that are painful, but yet on another level, they give you something special to hold on to. Take powerlessness or the victim feeling. There can be advantages to this emotional pattern. It may give you a sense of safety. It releases you from certain obligations or responsibilities. I can't help it, can I? It is a dark corner you're sitting in, but it seems a safe one. The danger of identifying or, quote, merging with such an emotional pattern for a long time is that you lose touch with your own true freedom, your innermost divine core. Things may have entered your life path that have justifiably provoked emotions of anger and resentment within you. This may have happened in your youth, later on, or even in past lives. It is very important that you get in touch with these emotions consciously and that you become aware of the anger, sadness, or any other intensely charged energy within you. But at a certain point, you need to take responsibility for your emotions, for they constitute your reactions to an outside event. Being centered, being in a state of clarity and spiritual balance means that you take full responsibility for all the emotions that are in you. You can then recognize the emotion of it, for instance, anger within you, and say at the same time, this was my reaction to certain events. I surround this reaction with understanding, but at the same time, I intend to release it. Life is ultimately not about being right. It is about being free and whole. And let me just tell you, the difference of how it feels is palpable. It's so huge for me. It is very liberating to release old emotional responses that have grown into a lifestyle. Oh boy, and howdy. One might say that it is all about the subtle middle road between suppressing emotions and drowning in them. On both sides, you have been raised with opinions and ideals that are not in accordance with the nature of spiritual alchemy. The essence of spiritual growth is that you do not suppress anything, but at the same time, you take full responsibility for it. I feel this. I chose this reaction so I can heal it. Claiming your mastership. That is my message. That is what my message is about truly. Perhaps it is not really a middle road, but a different road. It is all about spiritual mastership. In accepting all there is within you, you rise above it and become its master. Mastership is both strong and gentle. It is very allowing, and yet it takes great discipline, the discipline of courage and honesty. Claim your mastership. Become the master of the emotional bits and pieces that torment you, often behind your back. Get in touch with them. Take responsibility. Don't let yourself be driven by unconscious emotional hurts that sidetrack you and block your road to inner freedom. It is your consciousness that heals. No one else can restore the power over your own emotions for you. There are no external instruments or means to take away those emotions. It is in becoming aware of them with strength, determination, and compassion that they are released into the light. Becoming whole and free on the emotional level is one of the most important aspects of growing spiritually. I want to finish by saying, I do not make it more, no, I want to finish by saying, do not make it more difficult than it is. The spiritual path is a simple path. It is about love for yourself and inner clarity. It does not require any specific knowledge or any specific rituals, rules, or methods. All things you need for your individual spiritual growth are within you. And this is why I have if somebody tells you they know the way, run, because they only know it for them, not you. That's why it's important to just share what's worked for each other and be done with that, because it may not work for the other. It has to be something you feel into. Is this for me? Will this help me get in touch with me? Or at least that's how I've moved through this. At a quiet moment, go to the feeling side of you. Let this feeling side tell you what needs to be clarified and cleansed within you. Trust your intuition. Work on it. Believe in yourself. You are the master of your life, the master of your unique path to love and freedom. And oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. That's the end of this one. And I have to tell you, I couldn't agree more. That's why this has been so validating for me on so many levels as I've moved through, because I've I've I have had conversations with a lot of different folks, and it feels to me like it has to be an individual path, because what works for one won't necessarily work for the other because of all the experiences. That's why I call that our experiential filter. We come here and we collect all of these experiences that color the way we see and move through our reality. And we that then gets that all that good juju data gets added to the field, gets added to the Godhead, to the all, right? It's an experience that we came here to have, right? Thank you for being here. Thank you for, if you are finding this as a standalone somehow, please note that this is, I numbered them. Pamela Kribbe did not, but I did number them so they're easy to follow. And this one is number 18. So there are 17 other chapters to this. And on the two channels, New Light Streaming Love and on Sassy Seer Sheila, you will find all eventually. I am in the midst of recording them right now for the second time, um, in their own playlists. Till we meet again, my friends. I hope that you will move towards that which brings you joy, that which draws your attention in each moment that presents itself to you. Until we meet again, be well, my friends.